I'm Tyann B. I'm a compulsive overeater and abstinent for 33 years and then a slip, and then coming back now for another 10 years. So I was returning from Peru, and the stewardess said, "Do you want cream in your coffee?" And I said, "No," and she brought it anyway. And I drank it. It was like two little voices on either side of my shoulder saying, "Are you kidding? You're going to blow 33 years for that? Send it back." You know how to be assertive now in your program. But I didn't. But I waited. I talked with somebody else and I finally reported it to my sponsor. And woo, do our HALT. When you get honest about mistakes and or this was not a mistake though, or slips, then you feel so much better and your life just gets back on track. So my original abstinence date was 6/26/83. I walked into the Gray Sheet doors. I never went to any other 12-step program before I did so. And I picked somebody that night and got started right away and then went all the way up to 33 years. But that doesn't happen to everybody, and it doesn't matter if it happens or it doesn't happen. It's my story. There are no comparisons. You'll have your story. I have mine. Um, so I've been in Gray Sheet now for 43 years. I was 28 years old when I walked in the doors. I was the second half of step one is where I was at. My life was totally unmanageable in every which way. Like the big book says, the second bunch of stories under the stories are people who stopped in time. I was one of those. That doesn't make me better or worse than anybody else. It's just my story, as I said. Um, so when I got here and abstinent, and they explained, my first sponsor explained what we did, I went, "You're kidding me. The only foods that I ate were those things at the bottom that says don't eat these things." And that's, how I ate. I was always going on a diet. My parents were always screaming, "Get out of the refrigerator." And no matter how sneaky I would open the refrigerator door, they were always trying to control what I ate. And, needless to say, I'm an only kid. My parents were untreated adult children of alcoholics, and they were totally in love with each other. And they worked all the time. And I really was kind of in the way. So I've really been an only child in every area of my life and been alone in all the. That's a chronic problem in my life. And my relationship with food was always crazy. You know, um, Food and I have a very intimate and odd relationship. And when I came in here, yours was just as odd and weird as mine in your own special way. So I felt like I fit right in. I found home. When I came in, though, there were no cell phones. I was talking to my sponsor. We were reminiscing last, I mean, last morning that we talked, and there were still phone booths to go make a phone call if you needed to. There were no cell phones. There were all landlines. Um, and we talked about how hard we had to work to go to any lengths. I remember there was something in my story about, when I finally got to have a bicycle, and I told my sponsor that I would get, the rain never bothered me as far as, going to the store in the rain to get X, Y, and Z and hide it in the drawers that I had, so that in between my studying alone, which I had to come home and start studying. I wasn't allowed to go out and play and all that stuff. Um, I would eat, in between. I knew they were at the other end of the house, so I'd eat. And I also was a latchkey kid. So what I did was, before,
That's 5 minutes, Tyann.
thank you, before the phone call came at a certain time every day to see if I got in the house, if the doors were locked, if I was okay, I'd take my mother's money that I knew she had for the washing machines and all that we had to go to. We didn't have our own. We had to go somewhere to do that. And I'd go down to if I lived in New York City. I grew up there. 18 years in New York City before I moved out of it. So I grew up as a kid playing in the streets, playing on rooftops. It was a crazy life, but if you haven't seen New York, you don't understand the childhood I had. But so I go get the stuff. And I knew when the phone call was coming in. So I'd be back. Are you okay? You're not eating any snacks, are you? Dinner's going to be coming up soon when I get home. No, I'm not doing that. Just lying. When I look back at it, the sneaking, the lying, the cheating, the obsession with the food. The obsession was the worst part of my disease for me. I, you know, the compulsion, I had further to go as far as my weight in this program. But when I got abstinent, the food was just calling my name all the time. And so my first sponsor said, you need to go. There were only two Gray Sheet in-person meetings in Austin, Texas when I started. So she said, you need to go to AA meetings because you need more than just two. And so I started to, and like the ones I went to were like big book, and they talked about the disease. So I learned all about the disease in AA rooms. And for me, translating that to food was easy. For other people, I hear, oh, I couldn't relate, da da da. But I was also a drug addict and alcoholic. I just didn't know it, and I didn't want to admit it until 1985. So I was in the business of saving lots of pills, that I had been taking in a Ziploc bag because in 10th grade, I started just being totally depressed all the time. And this was my way out of this world. If it got bad enough, I was going to use that Ziploc bag. My parents didn't know I was depressed, but they never asked either. Um, I continued when I left high school, and grade school was 8 years of Catholic school. High school was 4 years of Jewish school, um, private, and then I left New York to go to Dallas, Texas. I lived there 4 years, and then I moved to Austin, Texas. Why did people in New York say, why in the world would you want to go live in Texas? I said, I don't know. The people were friendly. None of you guys are friendly. I like it. I'm tired of really cold weather. I want to get as far away from my parents. Texas is kind of far away from from New York. So as far as I could get away from them, the better. The big book presented the steps to me. So the Gray Sheet meetings I went to at the time were a lot about step one, what you do with your food. Um, you know, uh, Practice the steps with a sponsor. And yet the AA rooms taught me that we have a disease, that this program helps all areas, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. And that's the way I treat it today. This is the foundation for which I got more tools to live life. And then I also did therapy. I've done other self-help groups. I think you need more, this is just my opinion, than just the 12 steps. But, so I have pursued that. I've always been a seeker, so anything having to do with a higher power. Up until 4 years old, I was really happy. I'd walk with my parents on the sidewalk and, I'm Tyann, who are you? You want to come to our house? After 10th grade, I was I wore black all the time before I even knew what goth was. I was just depressed. Um, but anyway, when I got to college, I ended up eating all the time, getting in very bizarre situations. That continued, went on lots of diets. None of them worked. Um, but I lost the power to diet. None of them could keep me um, abstinent for very long. Fat is a feminist issue, little squares to eat those to replace meals. None of that stuff worked for me. I never got into the real expensive stuff. My third sponsor got into, um, I forget the name of it, but she was a star person in that program, but I wasn't able to. But what I've accomplished in Gray Sheet stays with me as long as I practice the program. I've had a lot of miracles in this program. I took the third step on a ski slope going down because I totally surrendered. I was terrified. And my ski instructor said, put one ski next to the other. And I went down the slope and I said, oh my God, this is so much fun. Where the fear was translated into fun. And I took what I learned there into the rest of my life. So I've gone a lot of places being abstinent on Gray Sheet. I'm not staying to these cards at all, whatever. Okay, so um, anyway, I've been to on lots 3 ocean liner trips. I've rode bikes on back roads trip in the Rocky Mountains and chopped my Gray Sheet food on a cooler with a bunch of those people in the back when it was time. I climbed to Machu Picchu. I forget if I'm not saying that right. We hiked all over. We did spiritual expeditions and various things like that. Um, I went to Teotihuacan and climbed the pyramids and did things like that. I went dog mushing in Alaska. These are the things, have hope. You don't have to just sit in a kitchen and be, chained to the table and the refrigerator with your life. If you do what we do and don't fight it, your life will change. Wait for the miracle to come. Don't leave without the miracle. And it will come. And I swear the miracles haven't stopped coming on and on and on. I love this program. It has given me a life worth fighting for. Um, I do this program no matter what. There are no exceptions. Um, you know, um, and that's how I do it. If there were one exception, then I'd never get back. I'd just keep making more. Um, so I don't know. I guess that's it. There's a whole bunch more cards, but you know what? I'm done. Thanks.